Gosh, for me, the biggest challenge is time-life balance. I'm not very good at saying no. So when I'm asked to do things, my immediate reaction is, well, just let me check my calendar. And if there's any way I can say yes to someone, I do that. And so I think that's one of the biggest challenges. Also, I think our business model in intercollegiate athletics and our business overall has changed tremendously. I've been in administration. I've been athletic director since 1990, so I look back to 1990 and our challenges were totally different then than they are today. There's a tremendous amount of litigation going on. Before we make decisions, now we have to think, gosh, could this be a potential lawsuit? Now that sounds crazy, but right now across this country it's very litigious, and so how we operate is just different, and the needs are greater, the financial needs, the competition for the dollars. Those are the biggest challenges. You know, that one's pretty simple for me. Being involved in higher education for my entire career, I can tell you that watching student athletes evolve, watching them mature from when they come their freshman year to when they graduate to even post-graduation, and to follow their careers and know that the vital role that they're getting their degrees because they played a sport has prepared them for life, and just seeing what they make of themselves. There's such pride in that for me. Now I will say every year these students look younger and younger because they are, but it's really neat to follow the careers of the young people and hopefully the positive influences that athletics and their participation has made in their lives. I think that would be cultivation and cultivating relationships. When I said our industry had changed a lot prior to my becoming athletic director here, I was not really very involved in fundraising, but very quickly I realized that if we wanted facilities and we wanted things, we were not going to get state funding for buildings, so I was going to have to raise money. And to raise money, you know, you can't just go ask somebody that you really don't know for millions of dollars if you don't have a relationship with them. So I think I really learned a lot about cultivating relationships and stewardship. But the interesting part about that is it starts off as a professional relationship, and most all of the relationships where I have had to ask people for large dollars has resulted in a personal friendship that started out as a professional relationship. They've become some of my very best friends. How does our program become better? How are we stronger? How do we get stronger? How do we become more competitive? At Charlotte right now, we have two teams that are consistently nationally ranked. One is our men's golf program, and the other is our men's soccer program. How do we get our other 15 sports competitive? How do we, really competitive on a national level? And we've been there for basketball in the past, and we need to get back there. And usually, you know, when I have those conversations and the strategic look at our programs and meet with senior staff on that, it pretty much boils down to money, because to get better, you usually have to invest more dollars, whether it is in salaries, competitive salaries, whether it is in facility improvement or new facilities and development. So I think all of that, the strategic planning for that. How do we get better and become more competitive? Hire good people and let them do their jobs. And really, I think people can read between the lines. Just don't micromanage your people. If you do hire the right people, you should not have to check up and say, you know, did you get that email I sent you last week about this, and that? I expect when I delegate something that it's going to be done. And if you hire good people, you don't have to check up on them every day to make sure that it is being done. So I would say that's probably the best advice that I have been given. You know, there's a quote. It's get up, dress up, show up. Okay? So always be prepared for anything you're going to encounter. And we all are in front of the media all the time, and we sometimes can guess what the questions might be. Other times we don't know what they're going to be, and how we react to them, and not just the media, but when we're dealing with a constituent base, donors, fans, being prepared is so critical, and just making sure you're professional in how you answer those questions and how you deal with people. It's not always easy to be professional, because oftentimes you're getting complaints from folks, and trying to be positive and represent the university and your athletic program and yourself. You want to remain your composure, okay? Maintain, I should say, your composure. I think integrity and honesty are the top for me. You know, you've heard many times you have one chance to make that first impression. But I think being genuine is so critical. People can read through you if you're not being genuine, and if you're not sincere. And if I'm going to sell this program, I want people to know we're going to operate in an honest way. If we break rules, it's going to be unintentionally. And if we break them, we're going to report ourselves, and we'll take whatever punishment comes with it. But if we knowingly break rules, that's a different animal. I'm not going to hire people that are going to knowingly break rules. Or if I do make that error in judgment in hiring, they won't be here very long. And I think that starts at the top. If people know what the level of expectation is, that we're going to run a clean program, and we're going to do things the right way. So that's one thing. I think the honesty and integrity defines probably pretty much who I am. I think humility is big to me in that regard. And the last I would say is I'm not afraid to ask people for help. Or if I don't know the answers, I'm not afraid to seek advice from somebody. People in this business, in the industry, other people who might not be in athletics, but are in major leadership roles. Oh, if my staff sees this, they will laugh. I am probably the most technologically illiterate of anyone in our department, okay? I know the basics, okay? I do not do social media at all. I don't do Twitter, I don't do Facebook, I don't do LinkedIn, I don't do any of those, and I certainly don't look at chat pages. And we have an understanding. Need to know only basis. Y'all check those chat pages. I know they don't like my decisions. I know they don't like this. Oftentimes people spend too much time on those, and so I'm just like, tell me if there's something I really need to know. Now, I thoroughly understand and appreciate the value of social media and technology. I really do, because especially with the millennials and that generation, that's how they get their information. And I'll never forget, I was leaving, this has been several years ago, I was leaving a soccer game on a Friday night, and I got in my car, and I'm backing out, and I get an email from Darren Speece, one of our senior associates, and he said, oh, Dario Green just said he saw you leaving the soccer game. I said, and what value does that have to anybody that I was leaving the soccer game? Oh, just that you were there. I said, it's really nobody's business that I was there. I said, this is why I don't like that. Everybody is tweeting or letting people know what you're doing. And I am not a private person, but I do like a little privacy in this. So I do totally understand the value of it. I'm just not a huge participant in it. You know, my husband and I are very fortunate to live on a lake outside of the Charlotte area. And water is a huge sedative for me. Now in the winter it doesn't do much for me, okay? But we don't have too many months of cold weather here. But just sitting out by the boat dock in the evenings, when we have daylight savings time intact. But that's a kind of a stress reliever for me. And my husband is a great stress reliever. Our personalities, I'm definitely type A personality, and he's very laid back and relaxed, and is a great sounding board for me. And he was in a different industry, but definitely in a large leadership role there, and he's retired and has been, but he has really good advice that kind of helps me calm down sometimes in that regard, and as a stress reliever. And outside of that, I would say I really enjoy reading, and I enjoy reading books that have nothing to do with the industry. When I'm on vacation or something, give me a James Patterson book, or give me something NCIS related, forensic any of the forensics materials, and I can get engrossed in that, and that takes me to a different place, and kind of relieves me of stress. Okay. May sound crazy, but it does. Well, I would say initially, when I was named athletic director in 1990, I was only the 3rd female in the country to be a Division I athletic director, and the other 2 women were on the West Coast, and I didn't know them. And there was really no method for us to be involved or whatever. And so I was very nervous when I was asked to be I was promoted from within to be the athletic director here. And I remember meeting with our chancellor at the time, and I told him I was very concerned, would he be there for me? And was I going to report directly to him? Because back in that day, it wasn't always that the athletic director, sometimes they reported through a vice president or a vice chancellor to a chancellor, and he said he would be there and all of that. I said, I know this is going to make a real splash in the newspapers here in Charlotte, and then it's going to be history. I just don't want you to be history. I need you to be around for me and to make sure that you are. And he gave me some great advice, because I said, I don't know, I've never made the big hire, and for us back then, that was men's basketball coach. I said, I've hired all the other positions here, and we didn't have football then. And I said, but I've never made that big hire, and I was very concerned about that. And his advice was, well, you've got time to make connections within colleagues within the NCAA, and even though they're not women, Judy, very many women, your mentors can be men. And he said, and then your female mentors can be successful women leaders in this community, business leaders. And so that was a challenge for me initially in that regard. And then I think looking at our industry, I'd mentioned how much it had changed. And in the last 5 years, it's changed even more. And I think concerns for me that create a challenge for us, if you are not in one of the Power Autonomy 65 conferences, the challenges become really great from a competitive equity standpoint, and the opportunity to compete with some of the best. And so I look at salaries, and can a Charlotte, without being in an Autonomy 5 conference, close that gap? Okay, the gap seems to widen as opposed to shrink, and I think the beauty of men's basketball has been the Final Four, okay, and March Madness. David has an opportunity to beat Goliath. They certainly have an opportunity to play them and to beat them and to be in the final game. There's opportunity. Do I see that as much in football? A little bit tougher for that to take place. And I see that gap, unfortunately, in my mind kind of widening as opposed to shrinking. And I am hopeful that right now, where you sit is where you stand on a lot of issues. Do we want more money put into this? Do we want coaches' salaries to continue to escalate, and more scholarships for this, that, and the other? The more money that needs to be invested, the financial models are changing on college campuses for intercollegiate athletics. Student fees are not going to continue to increase like they used to foot the bill for a lot of programs. So that model, whatever the collegiate model turns into, we know what it was. We know that there's a little bit of a hash mark. Is it collegiate professional model? Where are we headed, and where will we land? And I think every collegiate program needs to remain relevant. And how that is accomplished with Autonomy 5 versus the next 5 and then the other 22, I don't know how that really comes together, but it's something I think as an association we have to work on to make sure that all programs remain relevant. It's $1 million question. I think with those challenges ahead of us, I think the leadership has got to remain strong, and I think it's time, to be honest with you, for college presidents to step up in a different way, okay? We have seen conference associations and affiliations change tremendously. There are no geographic boundaries, none anymore. You can look at the names of conferences and go, really? We probably should change these names because it doesn't make sense anymore. Because in the past they've been somewhat geographically determined. And now they're not. Proximity, you don't even have to be close. Rivalries, some still exist, some don't. Almost everything has been done due to the media markets and television markets and what the dollars will bring. And it is a big business. It's always been a business. It's a bigger business now. And how do we put our arms around that? And it goes back to remaining relevant for everyone. But I'm hopeful that, you know, we look at boards of trustees or board of regents, whatever it is for specific institutions, and college presidents want to say they're in charge of intercollegiate athletics. And are the best decisions being made for institutions that make up conferences? And are we thinking about time demands on student athletes like we need to? We hear complaints from them collectively that this is a job for them. And so I think there are a number of issues out there that we still have to address, but I think if college presidents really say they want true ownership in what we're doing, then the decisions that they make need to reflect that.